Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today we will share to all of you about the halal authentication, especially in adulteration in halal food industry, and its solution by using halal authentications techniques. So, first of all, what is halal meat? Halal meat can be defined as the meats obtained from halal animals that have been slaughtered in accordance to Islamic Sharia.
Basic concept of Islamic rule governing halal meat is that the meat must be slaughtered in the name of Allah and to recognize the forbidden meat, which includes pork, dog, carnivorous animals, animals with tusks, and that are permissible to be exterminated. And then the Quran further explains the meaning of the forbidden meat, which include carcasses, blood, the strangled animal, and beaten to death, and that killed by a fall, and being smitten with a horn, and that which being eaten by the wild animal except what you have slaughtered before, and what is sacrificed on the stone set up for idols, which all of these are mentioned in the third verse of Surah Al-Ma'idah.
Inshallah, today I will talk about halal meat adulteration issues. Alright, first of all, what is the meaning of adulteration? Adulteration is addition of undeclared substances or materials to increase bulk product or weight, making the product appear more valuable than it actually is. There are various issues related to adulteration of food products, especially halal meat. And some halal meat issues that have arisen are: first, formalin meat. Formalin is a 30 to 40% formaldehyde solution in water that is usually used to treat dead body or carcasses. However, this formalin, if used in foodstuffs, can be harmful because this formalin contains carcinogenic substances that can cause cancer, asthma, and skin diseases. Alright, the second one is fake meat. Fake meat refers to substitution of physical characteristics, textures, and taste of the meat to be a new physical texture and taste of other meat. For example, in China, there is a way to substitute pork into beef by using chemical cow flavoring that can inflict long-term effects on humans, such as poisoning, defects, and cancer. Alright, one is mixing meat. The mixing of meat between beef and pork is often done by butchers solely for the benefit of gaining extra profit because pork is cheaper than beef. However, it will bring difficulties to differentiate between beef and pork via visual inspection. The last one is meat containing drug residue. Residues from drug usage on animals like beta agonists can cause side effects to the people who consume the meat, such as irregular heart function, muscle shivering, headache, and difficulty to sleep. Alright, these are some adulteration issues in halal food or halal meat industry.
Alright, moving on to the authentication technique, we have several devices that can be used to detect contamination in halal meat. First of all is FTIR. FTIR is Fourier Transform Infrared Spectroscopy. For now, there are several research which showed that FTIR can be used to detect pork that it mixed with another meat in halal industry. In order to understand how FTIR can be used to detect pork that is mixed with halal meat, we must first understand how the infrared interact with metal. So in this FTIR device, first IR light pass through the sample. For example, water molecule H2O. Depending on its energy, this can trigger the vibration of specific molecular bonds. This is called absorption. And then the energy absorbed is consumed, thus missing from the original IR beam. So how is an infrared spectrum measured? First, we need infrared light from a fitting source. The light is then directed at the sample. Some light is going to be reflected, but a large fraction of it will travel through the sample. When it travels through the sample, specific parts of it are going to be absorbed by the sample material. The part of light that is transmitted carries the molecular info be collected by detector to produce an electronic signal. But how do we turn this electronic signal into a spectrum? For FTIR, there is interferometer at the heart of it. During the measurement, the IR beam enters the interferometer and is directed at a beam splitter. As the name suggested, this splits the beam into two separate beams that are directed at a fixed and moving mirror respectively. Then the light travels back to the beam splitter where this recombined cause interference and is then directed at the sample material. That way, the spectral information of all wavelengths is acquired simultaneously, saving a lot of time. At the end, the detector produces a raw signal of light intensity versus mirror position. Finally, this raw signal is then mathematically Fourier transformed into classical IR plots of light intensity versus wave number. Alright, to get a clear review of how FTIR spectroscopy can detect light mixed with another halal meat, let us take a look at a research conducted by YB Chapman and MES Mirghani. From the result of their research, so this figure shows the infrared spectra of pure light, lamp body fat mixed with light and pure lamp body fat. Spectrum A is 100% light, spectrum B until G is light mixed with lamp body fat, and spectrum H is pure lamp body fat. We can see from the frequency of around 3009 until 3000, it can be observed that spectrum A, which contains 100% light, has a sharp bend. When the percentage of light is decreased throughout spectrum B to G, the sharpness of the peak also decreases. Spectrum H, which contains 100% lamp body fat, has only shoulder peak at the frequency range of 3009 to 3000.
Now I will proceed to the next method and instrument, which is ELISA and DSC. So we go to the first one. What is the ELISA? ELISA is the enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay, which is a biochemical assay technique or serology-based detection used mainly in immunology. It is a plate-based assay designed for any detection or quantifying substance such as peptides, proteins, antibodies, and hormones. There are 4 different ELISA that we need to know. So the first one is indirect ELISA, the second one is direct ELISA, the third one is sandwich ELISA, so the fourth one is a competitive ELISA. There are also advantages of using this method, such as there are also sensitivity of virus diagnosis, also cost of effective, and there are also large number of samples that can be tested for any virus infection. So there are also disadvantages for using this method, such as detection of virus of unknown origin is not possible by this serology, as well as its ability to detect antigenic property is not functional for virus, which is there are absence of code protein. There are more type of characteristics of ELISA, which is they are so sensitive and efficient. They are also good for large scale testing. They need to use test kit available commercial. That they also dependent on a good antisera, which means a very high expensive material. So we go to the next one, which is the DSC, which means differential scanning calorimetry. DSC is a thermal analytical technique that measures physical and chemical change within a material in response to a temperature. The equipment provides qualitative and quantitative information about endothermic process. You know, endothermic process is a heat flow into the sample, and exothermic, the process that heat flow out of the sample. The process or change in heat, this means the process or change in heat capacity. There are 2 types of DSC instrument that we need to know first. The first one is power consumption DSC, and the second one is the heat flux DSC. This technique is used to study what happens to polymers samples upon heating. This method is used to study thermal transition of polymer sample, which means the change that take place on the heating, such as example the melting of the crystalline, the gas transition, and the crystallization.
In conclusion, halal authentication techniques help halal scientists to detect any contamination in halal meats with certainty. This is in conformity with one of the legal maxims of Islamic jurisprudence, which states that La shakka ma'al yakin, which means there is no doubt with what is certain. This implies that when halal meat has gone through laboratory tests and is verified through halal authentication techniques that it is free from non-halal contamination, then there is no room to doubt over its halal status, as this halal status has reached the level of yaqeen.